Deportiva y con swing.
Deportiva y con swing.
La factoría del deporte desde New York para ti. Es una máquina.
Es una máquina
Pensada para ti.
pensada para ti. Número uno en las redes, dale like y compartir.
Con informaciones importantes siempre frescas.
Y con entrevistas que te ponen de cabeza.
Lo mejor del deporte lo encontrarás aquí.
Búscale en las redes, dale like y compartir.
Suscríbete,
Ay sí,
infórmate.
ok. Dale a la campana para que te llegue.
Sí, claro, primero que todo, un saludo, un fuerte abrazo a todos los presentes. Y bueno, recuerdo cuando me dijiste de estar presente en este meeting, en esta entrevista sobre Minnie, de una vez hay que entrar, porque definitivamente lo que Minnie representó, no solo para los cubanos, sino para el béisbol a nivel mundial, en las grandes ligas, en todos los niveles, es algo grande, no solo con sus números y el tiempo que estuvo jugando, sino con su comportamiento, su carisma, esa sonrisa siempre en la cara. Creo que ya por eso definitivamente él merece todos los méritos del mundo. Y recuerdo cuando yo llegué a Chicago, que era entrar por el crujado, que me quedé mirando, wow, es Minnie. Creo que esas son las cosas que uno no olvida y uno siempre las va a tener presente en cada... Bueno, ya yo estoy retirado, pero especialmente los jóvenes, todo lo que dieron, toda esa figura que iniciaron en el béisbol por Cuba, por los latinos. Es como yo digo, Minnie es el Jackie Robinson de nosotros.
Good morning, everybody. Big call for everybody here. This is a huge honor for me to be here, especially talking about Minnie. What can I say about Minnie? Minnie represent us in a beautiful way. He was, he was all that you can imagine on and off the field, not just because the way that he played, but just the way that he handled himself off the field, how he represent us, in the baseball world, but also, in the society. I think, Minnie was our Jackie Robinson. To me, I remember the first time that I got into the White Sox clubhouse and Minnie was there. It was like, wow, Minnie's here. To me, Minnie was a legend. He was one of the reasons I started playing baseball when I was a kid, and I, people talk about Minnie. It was like a wow, to me it was like I want to be like him. And then when I have the chance to meet him here, it was incredible. And like I said, he was one of our best representative, and our Jackie Robinson. He was our Jackie Robinson.
Bob and Eduardo, I'll let you guys have the floor if you'd like to make any opening remarks before we get to questions.
I think one thing that I wanted to say, number one, it's great to see Jose again. I'll never forget when Kenny brought the entire White Sox team to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and you standing next to the statue of the great Martin Dehigo.
Yeah. Remember that.
Oh man, I'll never forget that. It was beautiful. And I just agree completely with Jose. And I've said this for years. I thought in 2006 there had been an egregious mistake not voting Minnie into the Hall of Fame through the Negro Leagues Committee. So I am thrilled to see that he is now back on the ballot again, because as Jose mentioned, you can never reduce Minnie Minoso's career to just baseball. Minnie Minoso was the Latino Jackie Robinson, hands down. And what he did, obviously, in his game is noteworthy and certainly justifies Hall of Fame merit. But what he meant for legions of Latino ball players, to know that they too could have the dream of playing in the major league cannot be understated. And so for me, I was disappointed in 2006 when Buck and Minnie, who were the only two players still alive off that list that got into the Hall of Fame in 2006 off the Negro Leagues list, that I thought he should have gotten in then. I am very hopeful that he will finally get his rightful place in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, because it is well deserved.
You know, and it's a perfect piggyback for me right there, because I just had a recent conversation with my dad, because I knew the entire time, my dad being Tony Perez, Hall of Famer, class of 2000, I thought it was really cool that he always said that the player that he looked up to growing up was Minnie Minoso. And to be able to look up to Minnie Minoso, and as a kid in Cuba, being raised in a sugarcane town, being able to lift the bags and aspire and mimic his batting style, wishing he was as fast as Minnie Minoso was to steal the bases that he did, not only in the Negro Leagues, but then moving over to the major league level and doing it from the mid-20s on, because he wasn't given that opportunity to play every day early on until he was able to get traded to the Chicago White Sox. To me, Minnie Minoso meant so much more and transcended so much more in an era where there was, where the technology was nil. Still, kids listened and wanted to know what Minnie Minoso did the night before. And because of it, I am who I am, because my father aspired to be like Minnie Minoso. So there's a direct connection there to who Minnie Minoso represented, not only in the White Sox organization, but all over, from the teams that he played with to the Negro Leagues, and most importantly, to the Cuban community and to the Latino community and the Afro-Latino community, of being able to not only do it on the field, but also do it outside the lines and inspire others to be great at whatever they decided to do.
Thank you guys very much for your opening remarks. At this point, we can turn it over to questions from our assembled media on the call. Everyone here kind of knows the drill. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I'll introduce you and your outlet as well. And then at that point, please direct your question to any combination of Eduardo, Jose, or Bob. So let's get to the questions, and we'll start with Scott Merkin of MLB.com.
Thanks. Hey, Jose, how you doing?
Hey, my friend, how are you, buddy?
Good to see you. This question just for you on this one. You know, when you were growing up, what did you know of Minnie as a player? And then when you got to Chicago for the years you were there, you spoke a little bit about it in your opening statement, but what kind of influence? I know Jose Abreu always talked about what a great influence Minnie was, you know, on players who came over there. What kind of influence was he on you in your life during the White Sox, or maybe after that too?
Cuando estabas pequeño, estabas creciendo, obviamente estabas en Cuba, ¿qué sabías de Minnie? Y cuando llegaste a los Estados Unidos, cuando llegaste aquí a Chicago, ¿cuál fue la influencia pues, que Minnie tuvo para ti aquí?
Sí, definitivamente. Ya ahora en Cuba toda la información llega más fácil por los mismos, las redes sociales, los medios de comunicación, pero en aquel tiempo no. En aquel tiempo no. Yo siempre he dado la historia de que mi hermano tuvo que escuchar el juego de la World Series dentro del monte con un radiecito de pila, porque si lo veían escuchando el juego, eran presos. Más de 60 personas escuchando el juego ese, para que tengan idea. Pero llegaba la información de Minnie Minoso, llegaba la información de la Grandes Ligas, llegaba la información de Jackie Robinson, llegaba la información de Dani Pérez, de otro caballo, aquí está su hijo Eduardo, y nosotros, pero Minnie era una pólvora que se regaba en Cuba, la forma de jugar, su comportamiento, y creo que eso todo el niño que quería jugar en Cuba quería ser como Minnie. Y bueno, como te dije anteriormente, llegar a Chicago, estar en el clubhouse y ver a Minnie entrar por ese clubhouse fue como, wow. Y es una inspiración grande para todo el que juegue béisbol, una inspiración grande para todo el que quiere llegar al próximo nivel, tratar de imitar a esos caballos que llegaron primero que nosotros aquí a este béisbol.
Yeah, right now, in Cuba, you can access information. I mean, the access to information is very easy, you know, especially through the social media. But by that time, when I was a kid, you know, we didn't have that access. Then the information that we got there was limited. But we knew about Minnie. We knew about what Minnie was doing here. We knew about Tony Perez. You know, we knew that because I don't know exactly how that information got there, but we knew, and people used to see them as heroes, as role models, then everybody want to be like them. Whenever everybody want to be like Minnie. And I have I always share this story. You know, my brother, when we won the World Series, my brother was listening to the World Series in a radio. You know, hiding in the camp because that was a felony. If you know, the authorities would find him doing that, then that was a kind of a restriction that we had there. You know, that was way after Minnie's time, but just to give you guys a reference. And once I got here and I met Minnie, like I said, he was a big influence in my life. And you know, just like I said before, a role model. I had a chance to meet him and to share and spend time with him. Then it was an incredible time. Like I said, you want to be like him, and I truly want to be like him.
From WSCR in Chicago, Bruce Levine. Go ahead, Bruce.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure. Great to see you, Jose, my friend.
Hey.
Great to talk to you, Roberto, or I'm sorry, Eduardo. Always great to talk to you. And Bob, my question and comment is directed at you. This is an informational seminar here to get the word out on why Minnie Minoso has been skipped over. And there's no reason in my mind that Minnie Minoso shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame for a long time. And I can speak as a person that grew up in the 50s and 60s and watched Minnie play. And he transcended just being a player. He was somebody that the community embraced. The first person of color on the White Sox that had an impact as a person as well as a player. He also changed the way they played baseball in the 50s, along with Jackie Robinson, by bringing the go-go into the Chicago White Sox. So my question to you is, how difficult has this education process been, and what can we do to make sure that people understand the impact of this man who was a beautiful person and a big part of Chicago for over 50 years?
That's a great question, Bruce, and you're right. Minnie put the go in the go-go White Sox. You know, he brought that brash and daring style that was signature to Negro Leagues baseball. And here was this guy, beautiful ball player, as Monty Irvin would say, you know, who just electrified, you know, and so it has been frustrating to some degree to see people come up with what I thought were just illegitimate reasons to keep Minnie out of the Baseball Hall of Fame. This should have happened when he was still with us, you know, and I know how much it meant to him. You know, he wanted to be a Hall of Famer. He deserved to be a Hall of Famer. And I'm just happy now that perhaps the addition of those years, those couple of years that he spent in the Negro Leagues, if you're looking at numbers, for those who need numbers, we, you know, as we've all kind of said, numbers will never define Minnie Minoso, but for those who need numbers, the numbers will likely increase in his favor, you know, because of the time that he spent in the Negro Leagues. It's frustrating. I was frustrated with the 06 group because I thought they had a chance to do it and he was still alive. Now, prior to that, I have no idea why they had year after, you know, or time after time, looked at Minnie and said that he wasn't worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. I just think we have a chance to get it right this time. And again, we're here as an institution to continually try to educate people about these legendary ball players and those who built the bridge. You know, and Minnie was one of those bridge builders. You know, I think you've heard Eduardo mention it, you heard Jose mention it, you mention it, you know, even in your question to me. And those who become bridge builders in our society have a very special place. And Minnie Minoso did that. And he didn't just do it for those who were there, who got a chance to enjoy him there in Chicago, on the field and off the field. But he, as you can attest, he did it for legions of others who he inspired. And I think that is exemplary of what a Hall of Famer is all about.
Next question from The Athletic, James Fegan. Go ahead, James.
Thanks everyone for doing this. Eduardo, I was wondering if you could elaborate more on just kind of growing up with your father and how he maybe took lessons of Minnie's career and how his style of play and tried to impart it on you, and what you kind of take away from him. And, kind of separately, there's a lot of optimism now that his full statistical record can be, weighed, because the panel's allowed to kind of weigh in his Negro League statistics. But do you feel like in the years since his last attempt, there's been more of a consciousness, awareness of, Minnie's importance as an ambassador, both as a Cuban player and as a Black Latino player, in the early 1950s, being an ambassador in that respect?
Oh, I believe so. I mean, you look at the years that he had with the New York Cubans, and then you follow that by when he did get to Cleveland, not really getting an opportunity in Cleveland. And I think this is where maybe Bob can then elaborate a little bit more on the opportunities there, as they had a packed outfield of star players, with Larry Doby being one of those men there, but then being able to get traded to Chicago. And this is all of a sudden when Minnie's name started really just surfacing, not only in Chicago because of his impact right away that he had, but in Cuba, El Cometa Cubano, the Cuban Comet, of the aspiring kids, that now it is possible to be Afro-Latino and to be playing at the major league level. The stories that you get all the time as growing up, Minnie Minoso was the man. I mean, to my right here, I have a picture of the, the old timers that are in the Hall of Fame, from Martin Diego, who played in the Negro Leagues as well, who was an unbelievably complete player. And every kid, I imagine, Minnie wanted to be like Martin Diego. You fast forward to my dad wanting to be and following the footsteps and his dreams of when he told my grandfather, rest in peace, that he wanted to play in the major leagues, and getting that opportunity and signing for a $2 visa to be able to follow the footsteps of Minnie Minoso, because he opened the doors and he made it possible. And he did it with class, he did it with dignity. And every time that he got traded, Chicago brought him back. Every time he got traded, Chicago again brought him back. And all those things of perseverance, we learned at home how important perseverance was by listening to the stories of Minnie Minoso from my father's mouth. And that's the part that I really enjoyed. And as I said earlier, my dad being here yesterday at home, I said, come on, give me some stuff, give me some really cool stuff. And that was, and I love the stories, but most importantly, it's the impact that he had. And then I look up and I'm like, wow, this is all possible because I idolized every move that my dad made, not only on the field, but off the field. And he learned that from example of what Minnie meant to Chicago and all the other places that he touched ground on. And that's one of the cool parts of not just being, 2 degrees of separation when it comes to that. And finishing off, my last uniform that I wore as a player was in spring training with the White Sox. And one of the decisions that I had signed to go to the White Sox was because of that 2006 Minnie not being able to get in. In 2007, I found myself in Arizona and Tucson wearing the Chicago White Sox uniform. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the team, but it inspired me to at least know that if I did make the team, I knew Minnie was going to be there, welcoming me into that organization.
Go ahead, James.
Separately, if I just ask Bob real quick, the Baseball Reference now includes 111 additional games from the Negro Leagues that Minnie took part on. Do those records even fully account for exhibitions he might have played, or barnstorming, or other games he might have participated in?
No, those are just strictly league games. And and James, I remind people, and I appreciate statistics. Don't get me wrong. I know our game is this beautiful game of comparisons and statistics. But you just can't reduce the Negro Leagues to statistics, because you're not comparing apples to apples. No players had to endure what these players had to do to play baseball in this country. You can't even imagine what it must have been like for them to perform at such a high level, not knowing where you get something to eat. or not knowing where you're going to have a place to stay. And yet somehow or another, they're able to perform at such a great level and still bring a level of joy to this game. And when he transitions into Major League Baseball, it didn't change. You know what I mean? It didn't change. He's still going to be relegated to the south side of Chicago. And he's still going to have to deal with certain things that other players could not deal with. And somehow or another, dealing even with a language barrier, still found the wherewithal to perform and bring a level of joy to this game that few have brought to this game. And so, yeah, the numbers will help him, I do believe, over those couple of seasons. It won't give you the complete picture because there are so many games that won't be included in that. And what he meant to the New York Cubans and helping them win the World Series in 47, and then getting that opportunity to move on over. And, so it's exciting. I am, December 5th, I'm going to be sitting on the edge of my seat, man, because I'm sitting there waiting hopefully for Minnie's name to be called. I got Buck's name on there to be called, and along with several other Negro Leaguers. And so it's going to be a long, excruciating day for me on December 5th. I don't know how I'm going to occupy my time. It's going to be likely too cold to play golf, Eduardo. So I'm not going to be able to get on the golf course. So I'm going to have to do something while I wait until 5 o'clock Central Time to learn the fate of these individuals who we're so hopeful. Because, again, Minnie will likely go in as a Chicago White Sox if he gets that call. But Minnie will also be representative of the Negro Leagues as well.
Bob, can I add to this real quick? Because it was 195, you mentioned statistics, but it was 195 home runs that he hit at the major league level. In total, it was 135 as a Chicago White Sox. Now, what I would love the Veterans Committee to look at and understand is those fields, they have to remember the dimensions of Comiskey back in those days. I mean, think about the dimensions if they were like that today. How many home runs would not be home runs? How many would be doubles?
It's funny that you mentioned that. I had the Buck O'Neill Scouts Association in. They were doing their annual convention here in Kansas City this weekend as it coincided with Buck O'Neill's 110th birthday. And we're walking around the museum and we stop at a video that we have of the legendary Goose Tatum. And they're playing in Victory Field in Indianapolis. And Goose is playing first base. And when you look down the right field line, you see that the outfield wall was 395 to right.
Crazy. It was 460, if I'm not mistaken, right? 460, 470 to center field.
No. So there were no cheap home runs for the most part. Now you got some cheap ones in Yankee Stadium. If you were a left-hand hitter, they got some good cheap ones. But no, man, you had to be a man hit the ball out the ballpark, And so Minnie had to use his wheels, but he had power. I mean, you just look at him. He just looked like a thoroughbred. He had thoroughbred written all over him. And so, I can't even count the number of times that he and I sat in the conference room adjacent to my office, just talking baseball and talking about life and the joy that he had for this game and why he chose to pass up more lucrative opportunities to come play for the New York Cubans because he wanted to chase the American dream. And then he laid down that foundation of the dream of an American dream to so many others because they knew they would have an opportunity to play this game. Just as so many African Americans had that when Jackie breaks the color barrier. I talk about, Henry Aaron talking about he knew then that he had an opportunity now to play at that next level. What the world still said was the highest level at which you could play baseball. And so, so it's going to be a long day on December 5th, but hopefully a good day.
Next question is Chuck Garfine, NBC Sports Chicago. Go ahead, Chuck.
This question is for Jose. Jose, great to see you again. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to ask you if Minnie ever spoke to you about barriers that he faced coming up, what it was like for him playing. And if he didn't speak about that, I just I'd like to know your impressions of what that probably was like. I mean, you didn't speak the language very well when you came up, and what that would have been like for you if Minnie hadn't talked to you about it.
Quiero saber si tú tuviste la oportunidad en tus conversaciones con Minnie de hablar acerca de las barreras, de los obstáculos que él tuvo que superar cuando llegó aquí, durante su tiempo aquí, y si tuvieron tiempo de hablar, la siguiente pregunta es, ¿qué tan difícil hubiera sido para ti superar o enfrentar esos obstáculos sin que Minnie lo hubiese hecho antes?
Yo recuerdo que Minnie entraba al clubhouse y me hablaba en inglés. Y yo le digo, Minnie, por favor, no me hables en inglés, no hables inglés. Yo, no, es que yo necesito que tú aprendas a hablar inglés. Yo necesito que tú aprendas a hablar inglés. Yo no te voy a decir lo que yo pasé cuando yo llegué, pero para que tú no pases por eso. Y esa es la razón por la cual ahora, todos los días, ya en los últimos 5 años, he empezado a aprender inglés. Agarro una clase diaria, 1 hora de inglés diario. Claro, no he aprendido nada todavía, sigo sin hablarlo. Pero no, de verdad son las cosas que yo digo y las cosas que me motivaron a mí para tratar de jugar el béisbol. Yo a los 42 yo estaba con los Piratas jugando en Grandes Ligas, pero después la gente no sabe, mucha gente no sabe. Yo salí de las Grandes Ligas y me fui 3 años a México, me fui 1 año a Taiwán. Yo jugué hasta los 46, porque Minnie me decía, no te vayas del terreno, no juegues, no, si tú tienes la energía todavía y el amor por el béisbol, no te vayas del juego. Y después le decía, mira, porque voy a jugar hasta los 100 años, porque el amor por el béisbol a mí nunca se me va a ir. Son anécdotas y cositas que nosotros hablamos, y por eso yo duré tanto tiempo en el béisbol. Y es lo que yo le digo a los muchachos jóvenes ahora. No vean el béisbol como un negocio. En el momento que lo vean como un negocio, no lo vas a disfrutar y no vas a rendir lo necesario. No vas a rendir lo que tu talento puede hacer, lo que tu talento puede hacer en el terreno. Y esto es lo que trato de llevarle a los muchachos jóvenes, a los niños, ahora con la organización, inculcarle el amor por el juego, que se entreguen, tienen que dar el 150% en el terreno, en la práctica, para que el juego salga el 100%, porque definitivamente eso fue las cosas, el legado que nos dejó Minnie, que nos dejaron todos los caballos, eso que nos antecedieron a nosotros.
I remember Minnie coming into the clubhouse and talking to me in English, and it was like Minnie, I can't understand. I don't speak English. And Minnie said, I know, but I need you to learn. I need you to learn English because you will need that. That's going to make you better, and you need to do that. Then that was one of the things that, you know, I can tell you about Minnie. You know, he always was looking ways for us to get better, to improve, and to really blend and be part of the society here. And you know, I didn't pay too much attention to that advice at that moment, but then later on, I learned that I really need to speak English. And you know, 5 years ago, I started getting classes, at least 1 hour a day, to try to learn and improve my speaking. You know, it has been a process, but you know, that's definitely something that you need to do. That's something that I try to tell the guys here, hey, you need to learn. And one other thing that Minnie told me, well, not too many people know this, but I played in the majors until I was 42. That was my last season with the Pirates. And then I went to Mexico for 3 years, and then I went to Taiwan. I played until I was 46. And I did that because Minnie always told me, don't quit. Don't leave the field if you still feel that you can play. Then I joke around with him, saying, well, then I'm gonna play until I'm 100 years old. And then, you know, because honestly, I felt good. But and you know, that's one of one of the other things that I try to tell the guys, one of the things that I learned from Minnie, and don't leave the game if you still feel that you have more to do, that you have more to give. Then that is important, because once you walk away, it's done. Then if you feel that you can play, if you still feel that fire, if you still feel that love for the game, keep playing, keep doing what you love to do, and enjoy it, because you're gonna get a moment when you can't do it anymore. Then enjoy the game, enjoy what you're doing, and that's always on my mind, and that's one of the things that I try to pass to the guys right now.
From NBC Sports Chicago, Vinny Duber. Go ahead, Vinny.
Hey guys, thanks for talking this morning. My question for Eduardo, when you look around the game today and you look at not only the large number of Latino players and the large number of Cuban players, but the style in which players of all backgrounds are playing, how easy is it for you to see a direct connection to kind of Minnie's influence?
Oh, I think there is. I mean, indirectly, I guarantee you a lot of the young players don't even realize it, but it just goes generation to generation. And a lot of those players have learned it in winter baseball. Let's face it, Minnie not only made his living in the Negro leagues and in Major League Baseball, but he also had an influence in Mexico as well, in winter ball as well. And all that zest just continues to encompass all the Latino young players, and give a lot of credit to baseball and the way that they're allowing these players now to be able to show emotion on the field. The unwritten rules have been swept aside, you could say, and it's more of the zest. We see Ronald Acuna Jr. when he's healthy, what he's doing. If it's Juan Soto with the bat, again, just the speedsters on the bases, where he was a major asset when he played the game, where there wasn't a lot of base running. Minnie was stealing those bases, creating havoc on it. So yes, I see it so much in these young players, and it's because the game itself is embracing right now the zest of those players. And for years I saw it in winter baseball, playing it, managing it. We never really saw it at the major league level. Now we're seeing it more at the major league level, and I must admit, it's fun. It's fun to see that talent and that zest come out.
It's from the Chicago Tribune, Lamont Pope.
First off, thanks everyone. Bob, you mentioned his time with the New York Cubans. Just what kind of impact did he have during his time playing with them? And then Eduardo, if you had the chance to address that 16-person committee, just what would your message be to them for making that case?
Hey, Lamont, the same impact that he had with the White Sox when he got there, he had with the New York Cubans. Classic leadoff guy. You know, he had Ricky Henderson capabilities because he did have power and he had great speed. He had the great arm. He was the quintessential leadoff guy for a pretty doggone good New York Cuban team. And he was that table setter for the Cubans. And that same energy and electricity that he brought to the go-go White Sox, he did the same thing for the New York Cubans, you know, even as a youngster, you know, playing there with the New York Cubans. And he talked fondly of his days. You know, you're in New York City, man. You know, yeah, can you imagine? You know, you're in Harlem. Now, they were still having to stay in Harlem, but you're in Harlem at that time, young man playing baseball professionally. But now, you know, that same style that Eduardo was referencing, that we're starting to see kind of make its way back to Major League Baseball, which is, I think, sorely misses. You know, that was the style that was signal to a Negro Leagues baseball. You had to have that to play the game the way they played the game, and Minnie was perfect. He was the perfect leadoff guy for that team, you know, those couple of seasons that he was there. And like I said, helped them win a World Series in '47.
Every player had a role on a team, right? And Minnie knew what his role was. And his role was to get on base, to score runs. You look at a guy that in his career, if I'm just going, we're looking at a 397 on base percentage when it comes to a Chicago White Sox. It was very close to that throughout his entire career, from the Negro Leagues to when he started in Cleveland, didn't get much of an opportunity, to who he was with the White Sox, and then moving forward. Understood that it wasn't about hitting home runs, even though he did hit the 195 home runs for an 11-year period. Minnie Minoso had continued to not only score runs, but most importantly, get his base hits. It was 149, the least amount in that 11-year period that he had, from 51 to 61, if I'm not mistaken. Minnie Minoso, again, by understanding what his role and doing all the things, not only on the field, but having to deal with being an Afro-Latino off the field, the language barrier, the being the first Chicago White Sox of African Latino descent. All those things, to me, and the impact that he had on others, makes him a Hall of Famer. His WAR, if you want to talk WAR, if you want to talk metrics, you have Hall of Famers that have the same amount or less amount of WAR than he did, and they're in the Hall of Fame. Minnie belongs there. And again, the numbers are always balanced differently from today's game to the game back then. But for that era, Minnie belongs.
We still have a few hands up for Bob, Jose, and Eduardo. Next question from the New York Times, Tyler Kepner. Go ahead, Tyler.
Hey guys, how are you?
Tyler, good.
Hey, Tyler.
Good to see you again, Jose. It's been a long time since the Yankee days.
Yeah. How are you, buddy?
That's right. That's right. Bob, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier the 2006 vote. And I think at the time they had said that was going to be like the last consideration of Negro League players. Why is it important in your mind that they now reconsider a lot of names and open that vault back up again?
Well, I do think the decision that Major League Baseball made in December of last year to recognize the Negro Leagues for what we already knew it to be, a major league, kind of helped bolster this opportunity for Negro Leagues players to be reconsidered. Because you're right, the 2006 election was supposed to be the end all for the Negro Leagues. It was literally going to close the door on the Negro Leagues. And of course, there was a lot of people who were so disappointed that Buck O'Neil and Minnie Minoso didn't get in 2006. So there have been so many people who have continually beat the drum for those two individuals specifically. There were some other Negro Leaguers who I certainly believe deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm glad that the door is now reopened again. Now, I say all of that knowing that I have to prepare myself all over again for what happens if they don't get in. It was, while people will focus on how I felt about Buck O'Neil because I was so close and Buck, of course, started this museum, man, I was just as disappointed about Minnie Minoso. Because for me, we had an opportunity to do something truly historic. And that doesn't diminish the fact that the 17 that got in 2006, certainly not saying that they didn't deserve to be in, but the two you left out. And Buck O'Neil and Minnie Minoso were both alive at that time. And that's when you make something truly historic, because you've got those two guys who were there. They lived it. They were a part of it. So what did you have? You had Buck O'Neil speaking on behalf of those 17 that got in. And so I'm excited that perhaps the recognition of the Negro Leagues and rolling in the Negro League statistics reopen the door for Negro League consideration, not only this year, but maybe, I think every 10 years when this thing will kind of resurface again, if I'm not mistaken, that there could be potential Negro Leaguers back on the ballot again. And hopefully more information will be available from a statistical standpoint to kind of help validate it in the eyes of those who need those stats to understand just how great these players were.
Thanks, and thanks to you guys for doing this. This is great.
Back to James Fegan.
At this point, really a question for all of you, but we're 6.5 years out, I believe, from really the opportunity to have honored, Minnie Minoso in his lifetime and have him, have that experience to be there and understand how much he meant. Why is this still so meaningful to be able to have the opportunity to do this? Who will still, really bear the rewards of seeing, this historical figure honored in the appropriate way, even now that he's passed?
James, I think that's the beauty of baseball, because out of all of our sports, no sport holds to its history the way baseball does. And so it's one sport where we constantly compare those stars of the past with the stars of today. And it's the only sport where the stars of the past are still kind of revered more than the stars of today. I just had my good friend Joe Pasnansky here, who has written a beautiful book on the Baseball 100, the 100 greatest Negro League, 100 greatest baseball players. Hell, I guarantee you probably 75% of the guys who are in that 100, they probably hadn't played in 30 years. So, that's how we feel about our sport. And to some degree, the guys who play today don't get enough credit for how well they play the game today because of that romantic nature, how we look at baseball. And so it'll be cause for great celebration, man, in two countries, in the US and in Cuba, if Minnie Minoso gets into the Hall of Fame, as well as other parts of the globe. So it's exciting just thinking about the possibility.
I echo everything that Bob said. And when people go visit the Hall of Fame, there's so much pride, so much history all around the building, but the hall itself, to be able to see a plaque of another Cuban that played at the major league level. And yes, we have Martín Diego, Cubano, played in the Negro Leagues. We have my father, Tony Perez, but to add another Cuban to the list, wow. And I not only fight for the privilege of being able to have a voice for all those Latinos, especially los Cubanos, the Cubans, but to see my dad there on stage, how cool would that be if Minnie Minoso's name is mentioned on December 5th as one of the Hall of Famers for the next class of 2022. That right there, as a son of a Hall of Famer, that's cool.
It's going to be pretty special. It's going to be, I'm trying to speak it into existence.
I hear you.
José, ¿por qué crees que es tan importante que Minnie entre al Salón de la Fama este año, casi 6 años después de su muerte?
Ya, definitivamente es importante porque se lo merece. Eso es lo primordial, que él se lo merece por lo que hizo en el béisbol, por lo que hizo fuera del béisbol, por lo que representó para el béisbol en el mundo entero, pero especialmente para los cubanos, para nosotros los cubanos, para los latinos. Y bueno, a veces la gente dice, no, es solo un galardón. No, ese es el reconocimiento a tu carrera. Yo recuerdo que yo vi al papá de Eduardo, Tani Pérez, en el Juego de Estrella en Miami, y le dije, hey, ¿cómo estás? Y me dijo, hey, José, y le dije, mira, yo quiero que mi hijo te salude, porque que no hay muchos cubanos, no hay muchos, son solo 2. Y bueno, otros 4 o 5 que lo están, que creo que el mismo Luis Tian, es increíble los números y lo que ha hecho, lo que hizo Luis Tian y que todavía no lo hayan. Pero bueno, eso es otro tema, estamos con el Minnie. Pero eso creo que, como dijo anteriormente el director del Salón de la Fama, que definitivamente en Estados Unidos va a ser una cosa increíble, pero en Cuba eso va a ser una cosa grande. Y definitivamente, bueno, para los cubanos y para el béisbol. Y bueno, ya en Minnie, donde quiera que él esté, él está mirando y está por lo menos, bueno, me están reconociendo lo que uno dice y su familia que está ahí mirando. Creo que definitivamente hay que reconocerle y poner al Minnie en el Salón de la Fama por esa razón, porque él se lo merece.
It is important because he deserves it. I mean, just the way that he was as a baseball player, as a person, what he did on and off the field, yeah, he deserved it. I mean, that's a fair recognition for him. And if he is inducted, that's going to be huge for Cuba, for the Cuban players, for the Cuban country, because he meant and he meant a lot for all of us. He was a trailblazer, and you know, we don't have too many Hall of Famers. People may say, oh well, that's just a recognition. Yeah, but that's the recognition that he deserved. I mean, I remember in the All-Star game in Miami, you know, I was with my son, and we met Eddie's dad, Tony, and you know, I approached him and I told him, hey, I want you to introduce to my son, and to me that was a big moment because he is one of those heroes for the Cubans that is in the Hall of Fame right now. Then having another one and having Minnie there is going to be you know, a big honor. And but more than that, that is something that he really deserves. And you know, he needs justice. He needs to be there.
We've got two more questions in the queue. Go ahead, Maddie Lee, NBC Sports Chicago.
Yeah, thanks guys for doing this. Just piggybacking off of James's question, and Eduardo, you began to start answering this. For you personally, what would it mean to see Minnie be inducted?
Pride. The struggle that I know from the history of my father to be able to leave his country, not knowing when he was going to come back and make a new life here in the United States is really difficult to comprehend, to understand. And, you know, I've had the privilege to go to Cuba and visit my family, and so much that he left behind to start a new life. And this was in the 60s. So just imagine Minnie Minoso doing this, leaving in the 40s, a country that he knows, the island that he takes pride in, and trying to go and achieve a dream, not knowing the language, having to learn it. The advice he gave, the advice that he just gave right there to Jose early on about, you have to learn the language, you have to learn the culture to be able to survive and be able to do it well. But he did it in an era that is unfathomable right now to us. To me, it is. And those are my heroes. Those are the people that I look up to, because I understand how hard it was from the stories that I heard to be able to even have success. Many tried, many were able to be successful, but as successful as Minnie was in being able to be a hero to those aspiring young players, it would be great. Look, I'm going to turn this camera over to the right, to the other right. I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. But I just want to show you guys, because this, for me, means everything. And this is when these Hall of Famers, these are the Latino Hall of Famers, right? There were more after this list right here. But Carew meant the world to me as a hitting coach. Clemente carried me when I was a baby. Marichal, one of my dad's ultimate friends now here. My father, Luis Aparicio, Martin Diego, the other Cuban in the Hall of Fame, and Orlando Cepeda, my godfather. The history is always there, and it always will be for me, and it's important for me to be able to tell those stories moving forward. And Minnie Minoso, he being my dad's hero, I'm going to make sure that his name continues to be mentioned as one of the greats of all time, and the greats of all time belong in Cooperstown. And that's hopefully where he'll be December 5th.
It's so exciting. As I mentioned, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of tears for me, because again, I knew Minnie, and I can hear his voice in my head talking about being called the N-word when he didn't even know what it meant, you know, because his skin was as dark as mine. And yet still being able to persevere and still bring such great joy to this game under some of the most challenging sets of circumstances that anyone could ever face playing this game. And for me, as Eduardo talks about the Cuban pride, you know, I share that because we share a brotherhood. There is a bond. And so on that day, it gives me a chance to reflect on Cristobal Toriente and Jose Mendez, Matenda Higo. These are players all from the Negro Leagues that played in the Negro Leagues who are right now in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Yeah. I can't wait to hear Minnie Minoso's name added with them. And I'll be remiss if I didn't say, I hope my friend Tony Oliva gets that same call. So we got a chance here for this to be really special, and so because he deserves it. So like I said, I'm gonna be on pins and needles. There'll probably be some tears one way or the other. If they get in, be some tears of joy. If they don't get in, there'll be some tears of sadness. Because I honestly believe in the bottom of my heart, Minnie Minoso deserves to be in the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
And looks like we have one last question before we wrap up today's outstanding Zoom session. Go ahead, Bruce.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Eduardo and Bob and Jose for this, what you're doing here, which is so important, and giving perspective as to why somebody like Minnie Minoso has fallen through the cracks and deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I'll just add a portion of my perspective that hopefully will help Minnie get in. And that is that growing up in the 50s and 60s, the two most popular players in Chicago were Ernie Banks and Minnie Minoso. And they were people of color, and they were people of integrity, and they were people to be looked up to. And this was not an easy thing for either one of them to be able to do, to carry that torch. And they were very fantastic in the way they were doing it. Also, in perspective of the ballpark, Old Comiskey Park was 347 down one line, 353 down the other, 415 to center. And it said 375 in the power alleys. It was measured actually at 390. So from that perspective, understand that the home run record at Old Comiskey Park until Bill Melton came along in 1970 was 29 home runs, the lowest in all of Major League Baseball. That also shows you that Minnie Minoso was a power hitter and a five-tool player. I just want to thank you guys for what you've done, and thanks everybody that was on as well.
Thank you, Bruce.
We don't have any other questions in the queue, so before we wrap up, I just wanted to give Jose, Eduardo, and Bob one last opportunity. If you guys have any final words to share about Minnie, the floor is yours.
Wait a second, Bob. Wait a second, Bob. You're not going to go first. No. You go last because you know how to finish this thing off the right way. What? I'll go. I'll beat Jose to this because I know you guys. It's no. No, Bob. The reality for us is, and Bob, you mentioned it. If it's Tony Oliva, if it's Buck, if it's Minnie, we take so much pride in who these players were. But we're talking about Minnie right now, and Minnie's numbers, looking at them in the strength of his years, belongs in the Hall of Fame. The WAR, 53.8, belongs in the Hall of Fame. There are Hall of Famers that have less than that. We're looking at the new numbers. If we're looking at the analytics as far as on-base percentage and OPS, those numbers also belong. But most importantly, the player himself making the organization better, to me, is what it's all about. A winning atmosphere, a winning environment. Minnie Minoso belongs in the Hall of Fame because of all those little things that he did to make his teammates better during the time. And to speak of off the field, I think we've covered a lot of that. But off the field, even though those numbers were great on the field, he was a greater ambassador of the game off the field, not only in Chicago, not only all around the United States, in Cuba, also in Mexico. Minnie Minoso, to me, is a Hall of Famer.
O sea, si algo más que tú quieras decir ya para finalizar.
Definitivamente, yo muy de acuerdo con lo que está diciendo Eduardo, y los números no los voy a tocar. Los números no los voy a tocar porque a veces los números no definen la calidad. Los números son a veces un poco fríos, pero vamos a poner en el tiempo que jugó en Minnie, lo que tuvo que ser todas las barreras del racismo. la familia. Minnie nunca pudo regresar más a Cuba. Yo le voy a hablar de mi experiencia contigo. Yo vine en el año 2002. Llegué a los Yankees y en el Clubhouse yo me comía la misma comida de Roger Clemens. El mismo periodista que entrevistaba a Clemens me entrevistaba a mí. Éramos una familia en el Clubhouse, éramos una familia en el avión, no éramos una familia en el juego. Y yo lloraba todas las noches porque mi familia estaba en Cuba. Yo no sabía lo que comía mi familia en Cuba. Mi papá se me murió al año y medio y hice el velorio por teléfono. Estamos hablando de 2002. Y esa es la diferencia y las cosas que a veces el fanático no sabe, a veces la gente no sabe. ¿Qué tanto te puede afectar eso en el juego? Y él tuvo que pasar todas esas cosas, todas las barreras dentro del equipo, con los fanáticos, el racismo, todo lo que pasó, y ahí están los números. Y nunca tuvo un problema, ni dentro ni fuera del terreno, que es la otra cosa. Es como un embajador, no solo en Chicago, en Cuba, en México, creo que en el mundo.
I completely agree with all that Eduardo just said. And I won't talk about numbers because sometimes numbers, stats don't say the whole story. But I can tell you this, Minnie came here and he did all the great things and he could never come back to Cuba. He never could back to see his family. And I just want to tell you guys my story. I came here in 2002 to play with the Yankees. And I was in the clubhouse sitting with Roger Clemens, eating the same food that Roger Clemens was eating, being interviewed from the same journalist that was interviewing Roger Clemens. We were a family in the clubhouse. We were a family on the field. But even though we were a family, every day at night, I was crying because I didn't know how my family was doing. I didn't know what my family was eating. And it was tough. And a year and a half after I came here, my father died. And, I couldn't come back. And I have to be, I have to talk with my family through the phone. And I wasn't able to be there supporting them or being there with them. And I just imagine all the things that Minnie did without his family being there or here with him. And he never had a problem. He was good on and off the field. He fought through all the barriers and obstacles that were put in front of him. And he did great. He did great. He was, like I said, he was a real hero because I cannot imagine doing all the things that he did at that time. Then to me, he was a hero and he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame.
And I think both Eduardo and Jose summed it up so beautifully. And I think, again, over the course of this hour, we've kind of laid out, I hope, a perspective that the 16-person committee will take into consideration as they look at the candidacy of the great Minnie Minoso for his Hall of Fame considerations. He deserves to be there. I'm excited because, again, it is that bridge between the Negro Leagues and the great country of Cuba. Is that bridge that he, like others before, created and laid so that Eduardo and Jose and others could pursue their major league careers. It doesn't happen without those players. And so it is only fitting that he would take his proper place in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, because to me, he exemplifies everything that a Hall of Famer is supposed to be, both on and off the field. And so again, on December 5th, I'm encouraging everyone, cross your fingers, cross your arms, cross your legs. Man, if you can cross your eyes, cross those too, so that we can hopefully get Minnie in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And maybe a little divine intervention wouldn't hurt either.
On that note, Bob Kendrick, Eduardo Perez, Jose Contreras, thank you guys so much for your time, your insight, your very personal perspective on Minnie and his impact on the game. We really appreciate it, and we hope to have good news all around come December 5th.
Ray, thank you for reaching out to us. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for doing this. Thank you,
Thank you,
to the
guys.
media
Thank you,
that
guys.
jumped on. We appreciate everyone taking the time to ask their questions. Thank you, everybody.
All right,
All right,
thank
bye.
you.
Okay.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, guys.
Venga.
Hey, bye now.
Gracias, Jose.
Gracias, hermano. Thank you, guys.
Cuídate, José. Nos
Nos vemos.
vemos.
Un abrazo, hermano. Saludos a la familia.
Oye, la próxima vez prende las luces, ¿oíste? Que no te veo.
Estoy muy prieto, hacer. Estoy muy prieto. Un abrazo, mi hermano.
Cuídate, ok, nos vemos.
Máquina Deportiva, lo mejor del mundo del deporte, con análisis, comentarios e entrevistas.